much and reduce the symptoms. Green tea and shark cartilage. I'm going to use a fancy term on you here, and it's called angiogenesis. Don't have to spell it. I didn't even bother writing it down because I knew you wouldn't write it down. But anything that's anti-angiogenesis cuts off the blood supply to tumors. That includes cancer tumors, as a side note, and some of these things are researched for that. So increasing your green tea or utilization of shark cartilage can help cut off the blood supply to these tumors. Vitex, red clover, red raspberry, there are herbal formulas out there and herbal blends that you can find that contain, well, you can get these individually or combinations of these, these kind of help with hormonal stabilization and obviously getting you to where you're stable between your estrogens, progesterones, and testosterone is where you want to be. Next, we're going to be moving on to the fitness portion of our show. Thank you very much. Hi, I'm Heike Terciano. You're joining me for the fitness portion of our show. Laying down in a pronate position like this. Since we know that estrogens tend to store around the middle, estrogen dominant people, male and female, and like I mentioned before, guys looking down at your toes, girls trying to look and see whether or not you can see or turn around, or you got this little thing hanging over your bathing suit, estrogen dominant. So I'm going to show you a few exercises that can help with toning these little things down in here, hopefully, in addition to your cardiovascular or whatever weightlifting or dance routine you might have to help you burn off fat. I like to do it in a lay-down position. Raise your legs up, and then you're going to slightly pump up, holding and supporting your neck with your hand, because I don't want none of this going on. Okay, we want to pull up with our abs. And then to change the focus on this exercise, we can do 15 reps that way, put our legs down, and then pump it up another 15 this way. If you can do 5 sets of each, 15 up, 15 down, 5 times, you're doing good. Next, I'd like to point out an exercise for the lower abs, which a lot of us women tend to have a problem. A lot of guys will hold it higher, but us women can hold it lower. And these are exercises which I am very mindful of the back. I put my hands underneath my buttocks, trying to force my back into the floor, kind of pushing my butt up a little bit. And then very basically, all I'm doing is this type of exercise. Now, it's more difficult if I put my legs out, but once again, then it's harder on the back. So keeping it slightly folded in, bring it up, in, and then the kicks. If you can do 5 sets of 15 sets each, no more than 2 to 5 seconds rest in between sets, you're going to be my hero. Next, we're going to be moving on to the science research portion of our show. Thank you. Welcome to the research portion of our show. And as promised in the earlier segment, the first segment, I'm going to talk about quite a bit of the estrogens we're finding in the environment and some of the latest studies that have come out on how they affect the body. Very first one came out 2004, actually. It's been out for a while. And it had to do with the study of dioxins. What they found is during pregnancy, within 6 days after ingesting dioxin sources, remember we told you that it can come from meat sources, fuel oil sources, it stopped the replication and the proliferation of mammary gland breast cells from developing. Hence, I have tons of women that come into the store now with basically saying, I don't have enough milk, or I don't have enough breast development. What's going on in that? And so what I'm seeing in some of this research that's been around for a while that's just now coming out, these types of dioxins store in the fatty tissues of the body, and guess what us women have? Our breasts are fatty tissues. Particularly mammary development, you get an increased size in breast tissue. So therefore, a cut in the size of the breasts and then the ability or inability to feed our babies. Another sign of an estrogen dominance happening and going on. Bisphenol A. You've probably heard a lot about this on the news, our little plastic containers, unless they say BPA free. This is a chemical, a fuel oil type of chemical that they find in plastics, particularly in American plastics. Other countries like Canada, and they kind of care about what's in their plastics, and they don't want their public to be exposed to it. However, in the United States, it doesn't seem to be of a major concern. What they're finding is in a study with rats and mice, and see if I can get you the research team. Gosh, and this looked like it was a research team that was all-encompassing, different countries involved. What they found was there was a broad exposure of bisphenol A that are causing extreme harmful abnormality on a cellular level to rats. So, guess what? We're mammals. And so we're going to see cellular activity, cellular function, DNA, all these things being and affecting bisphenol A. Particularly, we're seeing quite a bit when they did cultures on the mice, their hearts. They were finding that these cardiac cells, they didn't function with the same energy level. Higher estrogen levels, heart not working as well. I wonder, blood pressure, all kinds of wonderful little things that it can be. Low heart output on a DNA, RNA cellular level with these bisphenol A. So whenever you can, get the water bottles that are bisphenol A or buy them. You can get them in various sporting goods stores, Sports Authority, wherever, that say BPA free. I know my little Boy Scout, Augie's got one when he goes on his campouts. Additional amount of research now finding that bisphenol A affects fertility. Now remember how earlier in our lecture we talked about estrogen dominance and how it can contribute to infertility? Well, there's studies now. This was the Endocrine Society 91st Annual Meeting in Washington, D.C. Found that there were fertility defects in mothers' offsprings. In other words, we have the babies, and guess what? They're going to have fertility problems 20 years down the line. Because these bisphenol A's are stored in the fatty tissues and they're changing the RNA, DNA on a cellular level. So we're talking about changing RNA, DNA in a developing fetus. We're talking permanent damage. Permanent damage. Somebody's got to speak up or do something about all these chemicals going in our environment and the exposure to people. And our government seems to be remaining relatively silent. We've got studies, good. I mean, Yale, that study I just mentioned coming out of Yale. We're seeing all of these studies coming out, but I don't see any legislation saying, DuPont, stop manufacturing these chemicals, they're hurting our people. Write your congressmen and senators, seriously. On a happier note, resveratrol comes from red wine. And we've mentioned it before because there was a study not long ago that talked about an increase in lifespan with resveratrol. Well, now we're finding also this red wine derivative, and here we go, therapeutic potential for cancer chemo prevention, in other words, protecting the heart from the damage that chemotherapy can cause. Obviously, we've seen research on it as far as anti-aging is concerned. I have customers nowadays, because of all the studies that are coming in, and that's one of their #1 antioxidants besides vitamin C that they're taking. In addition, even the lowest dose of resveratrol in 100 milligrams improved cell survival in the cardio and nervous system, in the heart, vascular system, good antioxidant, anti-aging, oh my gosh. You can drink that glass of red organic wine, but it's pretty not going to have the concentrations that you're going to get in a supplement with resveratrol. We kind of addressed a little bit of weight loss having to do with estrogen dominance again. And here we have another study now on vitamin D. And I'm going to read this quote, "Vitamin D deficiency is associated with obesity." Really? Wow. So what that means is we're not sure whether or not people who are obese are low in vitamin D, or whether or not low vitamin D is causing obesity. In other words, if you have an obesity problem, get tested for your vitamin D levels. Get that vitamin D. The doctors, I've been seeing a lot of my senior customers coming in, the docs are checking for vitamin D levels. Get tested. If you're low on vitamin D, take the supplement. In addition, the higher baseline vitamin D levels predicted a greater loss of abdominal fat. Stores around the middle. Like to see those gone. We like to see our toes. I'd like to move on next. Newborn weights affected by environmental contaminants. Once again, more environmental stuff. And this was done out of the Santa Justine University Hospital research out of Canada. Came out of Montreal in June 15th of 2009, not very long ago. And what they're finding is because of all these estrogen-dominant contaminants, we are having genital malformation in our male newborns and a decrease in male fertility later on. Isn't that wonderful? Once again, we're finding all these environmental contaminants. Our babies aren't being protected. They're being stored in the mother's bodies. And then you got babies who get to have the long-term RNA, DNA side effects of all these contaminants. I really want to mention a study that came out for a lot of my dementia customers, or dementia people. Zyprexa. Zyprexa, even though the farmer, Eli Lilly, had 7 studies that supported that there were no effectiveness of Zyprexa for people in dementia, they still went ahead and promoted the drug on an off-label to the doctors to be given to dementia patients. And as a result, they just got hammered with multi-millions of dollars. Now they want us to believe that Zyprexa, which just got approved by the EPA, is good for, in children, good for schizophrenia and bipolar. Unstable kids to begin with, and you're going to turn around and we're going to expect to believe Eli Lilly is going to tell us the truth about this chemical going in our babies' brains? I don't think so. They've got these signed letters from doctors who are agreeing to put their names on studies and then turn around and these studies aren't actually being conducted. Don't trust them. Don't go for it. Unless you see double-blind placebo studies from a university or some really reputable organization, don't trust them, and neither should the FDA. Bad, bad, bad. I want to mention, just as a closing note, I know I have a lot of customers that use marijuana for pain, and it's very helpful, but if you're using marijuana for other sources, 3 or 4 cigarettes is equivalent to smoking 20 cigarettes. That's how much damage it causes to the lungs in your RNA, DNA. So if you like your marijuana, don't think it's not doing damage. It's causing damage to your lungs. Thank you so much for joining our show today. I hope that this information will push you into researching, finding out things for yourself, and taking your health into your own hands. Thank you very much.